Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I am here with my final wrap up for 2024. I actually am posting this a little bit late, so it's kind of actually like a week and a half. I was planning on doing my wrap up on Sunday when I usually do it and post it on Monday. But honestly, I took that week off on vacation, and with Christmas and everything, I didn't really read that much. I only got like 4 books read. So we're not going to have a ton of books to talk about because this is going to be all the books from the 22nd to the 31st. So I am filming this actually on New Year's. So happy New Year's, happy 2025 to everybody. But let's go ahead and dive into this last wrap up. Okay, guys, so basically this is the last week and a half kind of 2024. I decided I was just gonna, instead of doing like a 2-week, that would have been kind of going into January, just with my brain thinking about how I wanted to organize it, I just decided let's just go to the 31st, close out the year. I am not going to be filming a wrap up then on Sunday. I'm actually going to do kind of like another week and a half, and then we'll be back to our weekly wrap-ups because I have so much stuff I need to get filmed this upcoming weekend. I have my top books of 2024, the worst books. Like I have, multiple videos I really need to get filmed and get to you guys. So those videos will be coming. I know I should be releasing soon. I did my 2025 goals. And then I'm also going to have like the most anticipated books of 2025, that video coming soon as well. So anyways, I have a lot to film. So let's just go ahead and get started. Honestly, this isn't going to be that many books even from what I originally had because it's basically like 6 books that I read. I'm also in the middle of reading the Outlander, the 7th Outlander book, An Echo in the Bone. So that's also taking up a lot of my reading right now. I wanted to get that done by the end of the year, but I'm almost done with it. So that'll be hopeful. I'm going to try and get it done so I can be on Jen's live show for the Outlander read along, which I believe she's doing that this upcoming weekend. So anyways, enough of that. Let's just go ahead and get started. So, a lot of the books that I read this month were like part of the fantasy romantasy readathon that Crystal actually put on, which I really appreciate her because I actually read more fantasy than I ever do. And that is going to be one of my goals for this next year, to read more fantasy. So with the start of that, I read, well, not the start of the readathon, but in this weekly wrap-up, I read A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Mila Vane, and I have never read this author. I have seen this on top some of people's favorite fantasy romances, and I actually saw that Jen from the Book Refuge loved it, so I actually had her annotate me this copy, so I have all her annotations. So what I ended up doing, we were actually in Temecula doing wine tasting, and so when we went to stay there for a couple days, I like read this physically so I could see all Jen's annotations, and then I actually listened to it on audiobook along with it, and I really loved the audiobook. It's available on AnyPlay if you have it and you're interested. But this was such an amazing fantasy, and it had such good world building. I mean, it is a little slow in the beginning, but there's so much to learn about the world and everything that's going on that I thought it was paced well. And honestly, like the heroine made this book for me. She is phenomenal. So what this book is about is, this is Maddox and Even. And Maddox is like, he's in charge. He's almost like, it was kind of giving me the vibes of like Khal Drogo from, Game of Thrones, like that type of, they're warriors. He's going to be the leader of his family. But he learns while he's out with not his horde, but see, I'm like in the horde mentality. But he's with his group of people, and he finds out that his parents were killed by another kingdom. So there's these different kingdoms, and they kind of have this main council type of thing. I'm going to be horrible at explaining this. I just want to preface that. But he finds out that this king or whatever, this leader, killed his parents. And they were actually visiting that land for some reason, and it ended up being because they were kind of called there by this man's daughter that he kind of kept away, hidden away, and she had kind of called to them for help, like wrote to them. And so his father was killed, and then his mother was held, and then I think tortured. More stuff, horrible stuff happened to her, and she was killed too. And they're not going to let him get revenge for political reasons. They say that supposedly his father tried to rape the daughter, or like crazy stuff that he's like, that is not true. My father would never do that. But because there was cause, he is not allowed to go after that king or his sons. But he actually gets this like serving woman, like she comes, like a maiden, she comes and reaches out to him and lets him know that the daughter is actually en route to go like get married off. And that she's the one that kind of drew his parents in there and maybe responsible. So it's not one of his sons, it's a daughter. So he takes his group and they basically go attack this. But he is not expecting Yvonne. And Yvonne gets out of this, carriage type of thing, and she comes out and her brother is with her, and her brothers are pretty evil. Her father is very evil. And she basically surprises him because he's gonna take her, and she literally kills her brother and is like, marry me. I am the future of my house. You marry me, you can be like also the king of and I'll be able to take back my kingdom and blah, blah, blah. And so she is like set all this emotion. She's the one that set that woman there. She needed to get free. Like she was like bound, and she needed to get free from her family. She was kind of like captured by them and everything. But he views her as like very weak. She's very small. She came from a line of like female like warriors, but he looks at her like she's so weak, and he hates her. He blames her for his parents' death, even though she tries to tell him the truth. He literally bans her from ever speaking about his mother or anything that happened, because she ended up building a relationship with his mother, and it wasn't her fault. And, they were trying to help her, and they actually wanted her to marry his son. Their son. So, I mean, this is crazy because she basically goes off with them, and they're going to be on this journey to kind of on the run from like her family is going to hunt her down. We've got crazy, like almost dinosaur weird creatures. There's stuff about like, I think is it the Conqueror? Hold on a sec. Let me look. Okay. Sorry about that. I just had to double check my review because it's not the Conqueror, it's the Destroyer. Because there was this, I don't know if it's a person, being, whatever it is, called the Destroyer that like they had to beat many years back, but he's still around and he's trying to come back. And that doesn't like get resolved in this, but it's going to be happening further in the series, I'm guessing. So there's so much politics, so much world building. I loved all the side characters. But what ended up blowing me away about this book is Yvonne, because she actually has like had a shattered knee where her knee is like all fucked up because her family did that to her. And so she is weak of body, but she's so strong in mind. She's really got a queen's brain. She really counsels Maddox on how to be a proper king, and that he's got a warrior's mind and he needs to be so much more if he's going to be a king. And she's just sees things 5 steps ahead. She's planning, she's methodical, she's ruthless, and she's just such a survivor. I mean, literally, she made this book a 6-star read for me because there are pacing. Sometimes it's slow, but there's so much going on in it. The last part was so action-packed. I got very emotional near the end about everything that she has to go through. It is so devastating, but she never stops fighting. She's so strong, and she never stops believing in herself, and she really puts her out there, and she goes head to head with Maddox, because Maddox will frustrate you because he's hating her the entire book. He won't let her explain things or listen to her or trust her, but you understand where he's coming from in his motivations and everything, and the way he treats her. They do have an insane chemistry too, where he wants to fuck her so bad and she's in for it, but they have to wait a specific night, like for a ritual type of thing so she can lose her virginity to him. But it was pretty spicy when we get to that. It is a slow burn. It's a very slow burn, but I thought it was paced perfectly with their relationship. And I did appreciate how Matic came for her and fought for her. But she is also her own like hero. She is just so strong and she's intelligent and she's feisty. And so this Even is going to be probably my favorite heroine of all time because she just blew me away from the beginning of this book. Like the beginning pages, right when she's introduced, she is strong. It's an amazing introduction. She is such an amazing character. Like, oh my God. Like, and Jen had some amazing stuff highlighted in here, but like, I mean, she just was so ruthless. And I don't know. I freaking loved it. So again, I gave this 6 stars. I am very interested in continuing with the series. I think this was one of the best fantasies I've read. I think it's more fantasy. It's not super involved on the romance as much as like other romantic-y stuff, but I really loved the fantasy elements of this. So 6 stars. And then I think I gave it 3 chilies because they do some amazing dirty talk. They get after it. I really loved it. Okay, so the next one I read was another fantasy, and that was The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This has been on my TBR forever. I actually bought both the audiobooks for the duet for the first 2 of this series. This is the first book in the Crowns of Nyaxia, and this was a very interesting setup because it was really basically like Hunger Games with vampires. And I was very interested. I think it had good world building. I mean, it is not my favorite of hers. I still really enjoyed it, but it just didn't hold up to the way I felt about the Daughter of No Worlds. That whole series was like phenomenal. Like that series was so good. But I really do love Carissa Broadbent. She's like one of my favorite fantasy authors right now. But what we have is Rayne and Araya. Sorry. I'll probably say lots of fantasy names wrong, but so Araya was actually taken in, kind of like adopted by a vampire like leader king. When she was a child, she was left, like her family died. She was in this like collapsed building, and he basically adopts her and takes her in, but this world is basically ran by like vampires. There's like human areas, like districts, and they're supposed to be safe. Are they really? No. But she basically has to live a pretty sheltered life, but she's also trained really well. Her father, her adopted father, has trained her really well. But she has to live kind of in fear because she also is always surrounded by vampires, and they could get bloodless. They could go after her. So she kind of has this restricted type of lifestyle, but she's very well trained, and he's been training her for a competition. It was called the Kajari, and this Kajari is basically like the Hunger Games thing that I'm saying. They get, I think it's like literally like 4 months of trials though that they have to go through. And she gets to basically make a wish or ask for something from Nyaxia, which is like the like vampire goddess. And so there was a lot of interesting stuff about like the goddess, like backstory. A lot of stuff just gets kind of told to you though. And so it didn't capture me as much. But I think some stuff is like missing, but obviously this is a first part of a duet. And I went in knowing that, so I wasn't upset with like the cliffhanger or anything, and it was a really good cliffhanger. But she basically gets put in these trials, and she has to compete with all these vampires. She has to live in like this mansion thing, like with the vampires, so that's not safe for her if they get bloodlust or whatever. So she ends up actually teaming up with Rayne, and Rayne is a vampire, and he's very mysterious. There's a lot more to him, but he was kind of like a swoon-worthy badass vampire, but also kind of like a cinnamon roll. And he basically offers her to come up in like this one area of this mansion with him and his friend. And that way they could train together, and then they could work together, because there's a specific trial that like you have to work with somebody. And so she reluctantly agrees because she's almost like bleeding out. She needs his help. Things go bad for her in that place. So she ends up training with him, and then they end up being like a really amazing team and going through all these trials together. I did really like their connection. I loved the world building was great. I thought that her relationship with the father was interesting. There was a lot going on here. A lot gets revealed at the end of the book. That leads us to our cliffhanger. So that was interesting. I don't want to give anything away, so I'm being pretty vague, but I thought it was very fast paced. I listened to the book in like a day. So I really enjoyed it. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. It just didn't hit full 5 stars for me, but I still really enjoyed it. And then I gave it 2 chilies. Okay, so we're going to go on here. I'm going to be having my vlog coming up soon, but I have so much videos planned for this next week or two, so I'm not sure when it's coming up. But I read God of Fury by Rina Kent. And this is the book that like I was highly anticipating out of the series. It's Rina Kent's first romance. And let me tell you, she blew it out of the park. Like, this is my favorite Rina Kent book. And I'm not even going to bury the lead or hide what I'm going to say here. It's a 6 freaking star read, because let me tell you, this book fucking wrecked me. I like must have bawled, like ugly cried. I think the last 100 pages of this book. Like, I got emotional multiple times in the book, but like I was bawling. So there is some really triggering stuff in this. I did not check the triggers because I'm usually okay with any triggers. But like, I do think you probably should for certain things. I'll give those triggers at the end so it doesn't spoil anything, but there is a lot of triggering content in this. Now I'm not mad that I didn't check it or anything, because it just wrecked me because it was so well done and emotional, and I love these characters. So in this book, we have Nikolai and Brandon, and Nikolai we've seen and Brandon we've seen throughout the series. It's really been hinted at that there's something going on with them. It was perfectly layered out through the series, where we're just getting little peeks at like what's going on with Nico and Brandon, because there's something going on. And so this book actually takes you back to the beginning of like from the first book in God of Malice, where we have that initiation. You know, when I read that book, I pretty much knew Brandon was the one sitting on Nikolai's lap, like at this initiation thing. And so it takes you back to that. And the reason Brandon was there, because Brandon is the straight-laced, dutiful son. He's the twin of Landon, who is like a psychopath. His brother is, he's like labeled, actually diagnosed with antisocial personality and narcissistic. So like Brandon and him aren't really close anymore. And there's so much more to why they're not close that you find out in this book that just broke my heart. But they're not really close anymore, but he still loves Landon. He's like another piece of him. And so he actually gets notified that Landon got himself in a bad situation, and he gets invited to this initiation. And so he shows up, he's wearing the dumb little bunny mask and everything, and he ends up running into Nikolai that night. And Nikolai's the one who actually sent him that to lure him there. He wasn't really into Brandon at this point. It was more of a way to fuck with Landon, because Landon is really pissed off the heathens. He's pissed off Nikolai. And so it was kind of to go after Landon in a way. But once this night happens, he becomes obsessed with Brandon. And Brandon, he has a girlfriend, but really it's like kind of just a girlfriend just for looks or whatever. You kind of discover he's asexual. Like, he really doesn't care about sex. And he, is really confused by his attraction to Nikolai in this, because once Nikolai gets obsessed with him, he's stalking him. He's showing up on, like, Brandon's very controlled and has a specific way he lives his life, almost OCD, but like not fully OCD, but he's very structured. Nikolai is like chaos. Nikolai he never say it in the book, but he's basically bipolar. He suffers from episodes where he gets very manic and situations like that. But Nikolai is like this teddy bear inside this tattooed badass package. I just love him so much. Like, his chaos. I love him. So like, he basically starts pursuing Brandon. And Brandon's like, I'm not gay. Like, I don't want anything to do with you. But does get turned on by Nikolai. Nikolai pushes past his boundaries and gets them there. So they end up kind of like in a secret relationship. Brandon does not want to come out. He doesn't want Landon to know about it. And that really upsets Nico. So you have a lot of push and pull back and forth going on for a lot of this. But you kind of understand where Landon's coming from. But you don't want him to hurt Nico because Nico doesn't give a fuck. He just wants to be with Brandon. And Nikolai was kind of a hoe before, but like now he only wants Brandon. I just love it. There's so much more to this. If you want more information, make sure you check out my vlog because I talk a lot. I made it only one vlog for this book because it ended up being way too much. I talked a lot about it. But Brandon is really suffering from some trauma in his past. And he does a lot of like, there's some self-harm in here. So that is one of the triggers that I do want to bring up. But he does have, a lot of demons that he's fighting and trying to deal with. And it is very hard to read. Like Brandon broke my heart in this. And him and Nikolai's journey together, like the way they come together. It is so spicy. Nikolai praises him and dirty talks, and he basically guides him through this journey of discovering his sexuality. And really it's for Nico. Like Nikolai is the one that does it for Brandon. So this is very beautiful. It is very dark. It has triggering stuff. Honestly, it's not like super dark with like dark romance vibes, but it's more of like the trauma and the demons and the issues, the triggers that I mentioned in this book. So I put up a spoiler or whatever because just some of the trigger warnings, I think she does a good job because she does mention it on the first page, like the beginning of the book. And she does tell you, if you don't want, you can skip my triggers or whatever, just so if you don't want anything ruined. But like, so this is some of the triggers that she lists are mental health issues, including depression, borderline personality disorder, suicidal thoughts, and self-harm. And this is the big one. So this is big, but it says minor sexual assault, suicide attempt, and then violence, of course. But those are some really big triggers, especially for anybody that's experienced anything like that. So it could really trigger you. So that's why I do want to bring it up. I didn't mind not checking the triggers because it didn't affect me. I mean, obviously it affected me. I bawled my eyes out, but it didn't like ruin the book experience for me. So anyways, enough of the spoilers, but those are some big triggers. So if you want to check them, check them. If you don't, and you can handle it, read it. But this blew me away because I've never read a Rina Kent that hit me emotionally. And I mean, like, I sobbed, like loud, ugly crying to this. So this book just hit different for me. I've never read a Rina Kent that was this powerful. And I don't know how she's going to follow it up with the next, like how, she could follow up in the next series or whatever. But I'm excited that she's going to write more because stuff was also hinted at this for like Gareth. And I know that book is coming out in 2025. So I'm very excited for Rina Kent's new books. So anyways, this was fantastic. I'm so glad I waited to do my top books of 2024 till when we hit January, because like reading this in the last month, this literally is going to be in probably my top 10. So we'll see where it lands, but one of my favorite books of the year. So 6 stars, and I gave it 5 chilies because it was fucking hot. Like it was so hot. So this gave me everything that I wanted, and I'm so excited about, Rina Kent's journey coming soon. Okay, so then I went on to an ALC and I listened to Undeniably Married by Saman. I don't know if I'm saying that right, so I apologize. This is actually my first book by this author, and this is the 4th book in the Boston's Irresistible Billionaire series. And I've seen this author everywhere, and I don't know why I haven't read them because I really had such a great time with this. So I'm definitely interested in reading more from them. This was a really fun one. It was actually like a friends to lovers Vegas wedding type of situation, fake marriage, all of that. So what we have is Sorrel. And Sorrel in the beginning of this it's actually her wedding. And she just found out her fiance was cheating on her for a long period of time with her best friend. She found like text messages and all this stuff. And so they're actually reading their vows. And instead of reading her vows, she basically reads their text in front of everybody. And her fiance was actually another football player or whatever from it was one of Mason's like ex-team members. So it's not on his current team or whatever. But she basically does that and she's running out and she runs into Mason. Mason was kind of showing up late because he became friends with her the last year. He really was crushing on her. I mean, this guy is obsessed. It's unrequited love in this to its finest. I mean, he's been pining after her forever, but I mean, she was in a relationship, engaged, and then she was going to be married. So he runs into her and they basically kind of do runaway bride situation here and they go to Vegas together to kind of get away. And they're having a drunken night. And actually Sorrel comes up with an idea of like, cause her fiance is like blaming it on like his phone getting hacked and publicly trying to save face and look better and how he wants her back. And it's a big misunderstanding. And so she's just infuriated. So she actually like comes up with the idea of them getting married, kind of like an FU to him. And Mason fights this because he's like in love with her. He really wants to put the work in and be with her. And he knows she'll like regret it the next day, but she's really adamant and they want to do it. So they end up doing the Vegas wedding. And then they kind of have a fling in Vegas because they have amazing chemistry. And this boy has been wanting to be with her forever. So he's really hoping this is his opportunity to be with her. So he fully like wants the marriage to continue, but she's kind of like, oh, when we get back, we need to kind of like annul the marriage and whatever. And so let's just have a fling while we're here. Unfortunately for her, some photos get leaked of them at the wedding. And so it gets all over the news. And so that looks kind of bad on her too, where she left her fiance at the altar and then now married one of his ex-teammates. And so it's not looking good for her. So and for him too, like he stole one of his friend's girlfriends or whatever. So their PR people were like, you guys need to stay married for a few months. And then when this all dies down, then we can figure it out. So she basically has to move in with him. And she tells him after that though, like, we can't hook up. We need to like keep this, friendship because like, she can't fall for anybody right now. She's also just got out of this long-term relationship. And so she just doesn't feel like she's ready for that. And he's basically playing the long game of like wanting to be there for her, but like wanting her. And now they're living in this forced proximity situation. And he's like having major feelings. She's falling for him. She's a doctor. She's a very successful doctor. And then it's going to go into one of those kind of pregnancy things too. So I don't think that totally spoils it, but is it his baby or is it the ex's baby? That's going to lead to some issues, but I freaking loved this. I thought it was so sweet. I'm really picky when it comes to friends to lovers. And I thought it really did a good job setting up their like really good friendship and how much he was like into her. And so she's the one that has to like kind of catch up to those feelings and kind of acknowledge them. And she's had a lot of betrayal in her past. So she's always had these walls up. So I think they did a really good job of like really creating these great characters, showing their friendship, showing their like connection and love. And so I really loved it. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars and 3 chilies. It was narrated by, sorry, I forgot to write it down. Let me see here. Oh, Dane Anderson and Emma Wilder, which I don't think I've ever listened to them before. I did kind of have an issue with his narration when he would do a girl's voice. It was like it like kind of took me out of the moment. So I wasn't fully into his girl voice, but it was a good audiobook. So I still gave it 5 stars. So then I listened to another ALC, and this was Mr. Broody by Piper Rayne. This is the second book in the Nest series, and this whole series is going to be duet narration with an entire cast. And let me tell you, like, these audiobooks are so well done. I fly through them. I liked the previous one. I think it was Mr. Heartbreaker, but I loved this one. Like, this one really stole my heart. And this is another example. It was a second chance. And I'm really picky about second chance, but I really loved the way this was set up and handled. So this is between Henry and Jade, and Henry is a single dad. We were introduced to him and his son in like the previous book. Because I don't know if I said it's the second book in the Nest series. I think I did. Anyways, we were introduced to him, and we kind of like are hinted about him, like maybe having a first love or something. But in this, we find out about Jade. And basically, Jade and Henry were childhood friends. They grew up together. They were best friends. And then when they were like 16, I believe, like he confessed he like likes her. And she's like, why didn't you tell me sooner? And it's just really cute. There was a few flashbacks in here, but there wasn't a ton, which I appreciated, to try and set up their like, you know, first connection. So they become boyfriend and girlfriend, and they're, you know, college sweethearts too. But then he's actually going to be going to the NHL, and she was kind of planning to follow him, but then he like realized she was kind of holding off on her dreams. So they end up ending things. And, you know, it was maybe a for now, but it ended things for good. And she kind of just never really returned back home. She became a photographer, and she traveled all over the world. And so, you know, he's been kind of like waiting for her, never really, you know, with somebody. And she's returned home 8 years later. And I think she came home for like her friend's wedding. She's the maid of honor, I believe, in it. And so she's staying there for a while. And she runs into him at that bar that this whole hockey team goes to. And so she's kind of like, oh no, you know, it's very angsty when they first run into each other. Like, she doesn't know what to do. And you know, there's a lot of kind of some baggage they have to work through on why things didn't work out. But I thought in this book, it was so amazing. Their talks and communication was like on point. But he's actually a single father. He adopted Broody. And let me just tell you, this kid was freaking adorable. He even had some of his own chapters. He was narrated by Teddy Hamilton. And Teddy Hamilton did such a good job with this kid's voice and like just being this precocious, adorable kid. It was fantastic. Broody is like basically, he actually gets her as his teacher because she ends up taking like a part-time, like a substitute teaching position real quick while she's there, and ends up being Brody's class. And so they keep kind of running into each other, and they can't stay away from each other. And Brody's also playing a little bit of a matchmaker situation here. So it was very, very cute. I loved how they communicated about their previous issues and where they want to go. And it wasn't totally angsty. You know, it wasn't super angsty. It was very sweet. They were like really great together. It was some good spice in here. I just really, really had a good time with this one. So this one was actually narrated by J.F. Harding and Brooke Bloomingdale did the hero and heroine. And then Teddy Hamilton, Sean Masters, Connor Craze, Troy Duran, and CJ Bloom were also the rest of the cast in this. So I honestly would highly recommend the audio for this because nothing's better than duet narration. And then when you have like a full cast, it just brings it to life even more. So I had a really good time with it. So this one I gave 5 stars and 3 chilies. Okay, so I only have one more book to talk about. I told you this is pretty quick, even though I've talked a while already, so it's probably not that quick. Anyways, I read God of War. So this one, again, had to follow God of Fury, and it just didn't hit me at all. This one is between Ava and Eli, and they've been hinted at in the previous series. Ava kind of irritated me at certain points. In Cecily's book, she kind of was like, who Cecily's her best friend, kind of seemed kind of selfish, but you learn more because Ava has been suffering with mental health her whole life. It's kind of genetic because I believe Cole was her father, and he was from the Royal Elite series. Him and Silver, I think it was. Yes, Silver. And his mother was like insane, and she did some really horrible things. So she's basically had a crush on Eli when she was like a little kid. Eli is actually Aiden and Elsa's son, and Eli's very much like Aiden. So I thought I would love his character more than I did. I did enjoy him by the end of this when everything's revealed, but I don't know, just anyways, I had some issues with this book. But basically she had a crush on him, and then when she turned 17, she like wrote this love letter and she tried to tell him about her feelings, and he basically just dissed her and was like, get away from me. And ever since that, like, she hates him. And so they've had this contentious relationship throughout the series. She like teams up with Landon to fuck with him because Landon just likes causing chaos, and they just hate each other so much. And this book actually takes you 2 years later after like the college stuff going on, because she was like partying. She had mental health issues. She has like psychosis and will go into fugue states and has a lot of loses time and sees things and kind of just, she has a lot. And she has to be medicated, and she wasn't taking her medication. She was just partying and became an alcoholic to, you know, deal with that. So there's a lot of issues in this one with like mental health, you know, addiction, that kind of stuff. And she ends up, you know, driving drunk one night, getting in an accident, and then she wakes up in the hospital and she finds out she's married to Eli and is like, what the hell? Like, I would never marry him. And it's been 2 years. So she has no idea. And here we go. It's like the amnesia. It's like the short term, whatever type of amnesia. She doesn't remember like the last 2 years. And I hate that trope. And the thing that I had an issue with this was, I've read Rina Kent's entire backlist. So there were multiple books from her backlist that this was like a mix of. And so if you haven't read all those books, it might feel like something new, but this felt like, oh, let's just throw this book together all into this one book. And it was just not working for me. And it literally took like over 60-70% to figure out what really happened. And we're spending all that time. It was kind of dragging for me. I didn't fully buy into them. You know, like there's too much secrecy about what happened to her. And I don't know. I felt like it was regurgitated shit from her previous books. So it took a while. I think it was really sad because God of Fury was just so perfect. To follow it up with this, it wasn't as good. I still enjoyed it. I loved Eli because you find out that he basically, you know, he's married to her. He's like her guardian in charge of like her psychiatry appointments, you know, her medication, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, he's basically had to take on so much to keep her safe and keep an eye on her and keep her medicated and healthy. But she is out of control, you know, and so, I don't know. There was just parts of this, like Ava came off so bratty and was like fighting him stupidly over dumb things. And I was just like, grow up. So I didn't fully buy into them. There were still some really good spicy times. Rina Kent always delivers on that. But it just didn't hit for me the same as the other ones. So I didn't love this one as much. I ended up giving this one 4 stars and 3.5 chilies. I don't know. I think I would have liked it if this was in a different series and we ended it with, you know, Brandon and Nikolai, because that would have been a perfect ending to that series. But I didn't hate it. It just had stuff that didn't work for me. So that vlog will be coming to you guys soon. I don't know when, but yeah. So anyways, 4 stars. So those are all the books that I read. Not that many, but it's fine. You know, I still did okay. I'm actually about to film my December wrap up too. So that'll be coming soon as well. I just have so many videos to get to you guys. So anyways, thank you so much for watching this. Thank you for coming back to me. Thank you for another year of, you know, BookTube. I just love this community, and, you know, I just appreciate all of you guys. So thank you so much. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment, like the video, and I will see you guys in the new year.